Welcome back, Nerglings. Today we are talking Munda. But before we start, be sure to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss an update. In our last video, we looked at the general lore of Necromunda. In this one, we are going to delve deeper into the various gangs that populate it. From the dank tunnels to the towering spires and everything in between. The Adeptus Arbites, or Arbite Enforcers as I like to call them, are the police force of the Adeptus Terra, devoted to enforcing imperial law throughout the entire Imperium. They are utterly dedicated and without mercy, for they are the agents of a harsh law where failure and incompetence are crimes, and the only suitable punishment is death. The Arbites have a limited presence on Necromunda, as they are only concerned with interplanetary criminals and enforcing the Lex Imperialis, the universal laws of the Imperium. They do not care about the trivialities of gang warfare or the corruption of Lord Helmore, as long as Necromunda remains loyal to the God Emperor and pays the Imperial tithe on time. They operate from a massive fortress called the Hall of Justice, located in Hive Primus, the largest and oldest hive on Necromunda. The Hall of Justice is a self-contained city with its own power generators, barracks, armories, courts, prisons, and execution chambers. The Arbites rarely venture out of their fortress unless they have a specific target or mission to accomplish. Equipped with some of the most advanced and deadly weapons and armor available in the Imperium, the Arbites wear carapace armor, which provides excellent protection against most weapons. They carry shotguns with various types of ammunition, such as executioner shells, which can blow gaping holes in their enemies, or inferno shells, which can set fire to a large area. They also use bolters, which fire explosive rounds that can punch through armor and flesh alike. The Arbites are feared throughout Necromunda, for they are ruthless and relentless in their pursuit of justice. They do not negotiate or compromise with criminals, instead delivering swift and violent sentences as judge, jury, and executioner. It is worth noting that, invariably, most sentences end in death. They have no allies or friends amongst the inhabitants of Necromunda, only enemies and suspects. The Arbites are not a gang as such, but rather an elite force of law enforcers that answer only to the Adeptus Terra. They have no interest in the politics or conflicts of Necromunda, but only in maintaining order and stability in the name of the God Emperor. They are the ultimate authority on Necromunda, and none can escape their judgment. The Escher are descendants of the noble House Escher, which was one of the founding families of Necromunda. They were renowned for their beauty, grace, and artistic talent, as well as their skill in genetic engineering and biosculpting. They use their knowledge to create exotic plants, animals, and even humans for their own pleasure and profit. However, their hubris led to their downfall, as they experimented with forbidden technologies and alien DNA, which angered the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Inquisition. They were accused of heresy and mutancy, and their spire was besieged by the Imperial forces. The Escher fought back fiercely, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. They were forced to flee to the Underhive, where they had to adapt to a harsh and hostile environment. The Escher survived by forming gangs and alliances with other Underhive factions such as House Orlock and House Delaque. They also maintained their expertise in chemistry and biology, which gave them an edge over their enemies. Throughout the generations, they developed various drugs, poisons and toxins which they use for combat, trade, or recreation. The Escher are fiercely loyal to their house and their gang. They have a matriarchal society where women are the leaders, warriors and rulers. Men are rare and weak amongst the Escher due to the effects of the Shim-Pra, a mysterious substance that alters their genes. Men are usually kept as slaves, breeders, or sacrifices. What a life, eh? The Escher worship the God Emperor as a female deity, whom they call the Divine Mother or the Great Matriarch. They believe that she is the source of all life and beauty in the universe, and that she protects and guides them. They also revere their ancestors, especially their founder, Lady Escher, who is regarded as a saint. The Escher value beauty, artistry, and individuality, and express themselves through their appearance, clothing, and tattoos. They have a flamboyant and colourful style which contrasts with the grim and dark Underhive. They also enjoy music, dance, and poetry which they use to celebrate or mourn loss. The Escher are a proud and powerful gang that has risen from the ashes of their noble past. They have carved a niche for themselves in the Underhive with their skill and poisons. They are loyal to House Escher and the God Emperor, but they have their own agenda and ambitions. The Delaque are descendants of the noble House Delaque, which was one of the founding families of Necromunda. They were renowned for their skill in stealth technology and infiltration, as well as their loyalty to Lord Helmor, the planetary governor. However, their fate changed when they were involved in a catastrophic accident that destroyed their spire and exposed them to a strange radiation. The radiation caused them to lose their hair, skin pigmentation, and eyesight, making them look like pale and blind creatures. The survivors adapted to their new condition by developing a heightened sense of hearing and echolocation, as well as a resistance to pain and psychic attack. They also use their stealth technology to create cloaking devices and sound dampeners, which allow them to move unseen and unheard of in the Underhive. The Delaque maintained their allegiance to Lord Helmor, who granted them a special status among the houses of Necromunda. As such, they became his eyes and ears in the Underhive, spying on the other houses and reporting any signs of rebellion or treachery. On occasion, particularly skillful individuals may act as assassins and saboteurs, eliminating any threats or rivals. Feared and distrusted by the other houses, who see them as traitors and heretics, the Delaque are resolute in their convictions. They have no friends or allies, only enemies and targets. They are especially hated by House Van Saar, who blame them for the accident that destroyed their spire. The Delaque have a secretive and paranoid culture where information is power and trust is rare. They have no fixed hierarchy or leadership, but rather operate through a network of cells and agents who communicate through codes and signals. They also have a mysterious council called the Star Chamber, which is said to be the true ruler of the house. Like most, the Delaque worship the God Emperor as a deity, whom they call the Divine Father or the Great Watcher. They believe that he is the source of all knowledge and secrets in the universe, and that he protects and guides them. They also revere their ancestors, especially their founder, Lord Delaque, who is regarded as a prophet. Being assassins and spies, naturally, stealth, cunning, and intelligence are highly valued. Gangers express these traits and themselves through their equipment, clothing, and implants. They have a dark and minimalistic style which blends with the shadows of the underhive. They also enjoy puzzles, riddles, and games of wit which they use to test or challenge each other. The Delaque are not afraid of darkness or silence. Rather, they see them as allies and tools. They have a code of honor which demands loyalty, secrecy, and skill. Whilst they respect cunning and stealth in their enemies, they despise noise and clumsiness. The Goliath are descendants of the noble House Goliath, again one of the founding families of Necromunda. They were renowned for their skill in heavy industry and mining, as well as their loyalty to Lord Helmore. However, their fate changed when they were exposed to a terrible plague that ravaged their spire and killed most of their population. The plague also caused them to suffer from sterility and degeneration, making them unable to reproduce or maintain their strength. To survive, the Goliath developed a cult of strength, using various drugs, implants, and gene therapies to enhance their physical prowess and combat skills. They also use their industrial expertise to create effective weapons and armor, which they use to dominate the underhive. Goliath became Lord Helmore's muscle and enforcers, crushing any resistance or opposition to his rule. They also acted as his miners and workers, extracting valuable resources and producing goods for his benefit. The Goliath are feared and respected by the other houses, who see them as warriors and champions. They have few friends or allies, only rivals and enemies. They are especially hated by House Escher, who despise them for their misogyny and brutality, and pity them in equal measure for their inability to procreate. The Goliath have a patriarchal and hierarchical culture, where strength is everything and weakness is nothing. They have a strict pecking order where the strongest and most skilled fighters are the leaders, while the weakest and most useless are the slaves or fodder. They also have a ritualistic council called the Iron Council, which is composed of the most powerful gang leaders. The Goliath worship the God Emperor, who they call the Divine Father or the Great Forger. They believe he is the source of all strength and power in the universe, and that he protects and guides them. They also revere their ancestors, especially their founder, Lord Goliath, who is regarded as a mighty hero. Gangers of the Goliath value strength, honor, and loyalty. They also enjoy fighting, drinking, and gambling, which they use to prove and improve themselves. Pain and death hold no sway over them, as they are viewed as challenges to overcome. Their code of honor demands courage, respect, and skill at arms. Whilst they may respect the strength and honor of their enemies, they despise cowardice and treachery. The Van Saar are descendants of the noble House Van Saar, one of the founding families of Necromunda. They were renowned for their skill in science and technology, as well as their wealth and influence. However, their fate changed when they discovered a mysterious standard template construct on an ancient space hulk. The STC contained secrets and knowledge beyond their wildest dreams, but also a deadly curse. The STC emitted a subtle radiation that slowly poisoned and mutated the Van Saar, making them dependent on its power. To combat the STC's effects, they developed a cult of knowledge, using the STC's power to create advanced weapons and equipment, as well as gene therapies and cybernetics to enhance their physical and mental abilities. They also used their technological expertise to create environmental suits and rad shields which protected them from the radiation and the harsh environment of the Underhive. Throughout this, the Van Saar maintained their allegiance to Lord Helmore, who granted them privileged status among the houses of Necromunda, becoming his traders and advisors, supplying him with valuable goods and services, as well as information and intelligence. Using their wisdom, they also acted as his allies and mediators, helping him to negotiate or resolve conflicts with other factions. The Van Saar are respected and envied by the other houses, who see them as innovators and visionaries. However, they are especially disliked by House Orlock, who compete with them for resources and markets. The Van Saar have a rational and pragmatic culture where knowledge is power and efficiency is paramount. They have a meritocratic hierarchy where the most skilled and intelligent individuals are the leaders, while the less capable or useful are the workers or outcasts. They also have a secretive council called the High Council, which is composed of the most influential gang leaders, where strategy and battle plans are laid out to defend their territory in the Hive. The Van Saar worship the God Emperor, whom they call the Divine Father or the Great Architect. They believe that he is the source of all science and technology in the universe, and that he protects and guides them. They also revere their ancestors, especially their founder, Lord Van Saar, who is regarded as a genius. The Van Saar value intelligence, innovation, and progress, and they express themselves through their equipment, clothing, and implants. Typically, their armor and weapons reflect their sleek and futuristic style. They also enjoy learning, experimenting, and inventing, which they use to advance their cause. The code of honor they live by demands logic, respect, and skill. Ignorance and stagnation are their enemies. House Orlock is known as the House of Iron because of its dominance in heavy industry and mining. They produce and trade valuable goods and resources such as metals, ores, fuels, and weapons. Loyal to Lord Helmore, the planetary governor of Necromunda, House Orlock act as his traders and advisors, supplying him with goods and services, as well as information and intelligence. Having a measured approach to things, Orlocks make particularly good negotiators. House Orlock has access to advanced technology and equipment, such as lasguns, autoguns, plasma guns, and servo harnesses. They have a reputation for being rational and pragmatic, willing to cooperate or compromise for mutual benefit. Their rivals, the Van Saar, compete with them for markets and technology, whilst the outlaws of the Cawdor and the mutants of the Goliath are seen as eminent threats to their power. Skill and success are rewarded and respected, with a flat hierarchy where the gang leaders are elected by their peers, and the workers have a say in their affairs. House Orlock also has a council called the Iron Guild, which represents the interests of the house in meetings in the Palatine. Their founder, Lord Orlock, is revered as a pioneer whose values of innovation, intelligence, and progress are still taught to the young today as virtues. Gangers have a rugged and industrial style which reflects their hard-working and adventurous lifestyle. The Ratskin Renegades are the native inhabitants of Necromunda. They are the outcast descendants of the first colonists who settled on the planet before the arrival of the noble houses and imperial rule. The Ratskins live in harmony with the natural environment of Necromunda, which they call the Great Spirit. They have a deep knowledge of what little flora and fauna remains on the planet, as well as the hidden paths and secret places of the Underhive. The gang are loyal to their tribes and their elders, who guide them with wisdom and tradition. They have a spiritual and communal culture where they share everything and respect all life. Their council is called the Great Gathering, which is composed of the representatives of all tribes. The Ratskins are hostile to the invaders and polluters of Necromunda, who they call the Pale Skins, seeing them as enemies and threats to their way of life and their sacred land, often raiding or ambushing them, using the stealth afforded to them by their vast knowledge of their surroundings. The other gangs view the Ratskins as savages and vermin, and are especially hated by House Cawdor and the Redemptionists, who persecute them for their heresy and mutancy. The Ratskins use simple but effective weapons and equipment such as bows, spears, knives, and slings. They also use various types of traps, snares, nets, and pitfalls, which they set up in their territory. One of the few gangs to make use of animal companions such as rats, dogs, or birds, which they train or befriend. They worship the Great Spirit, which they believe is the source of all life and magic in the universe, and that it protects and guides them. They also revere their ancestors, especially their founder, Ratskin, who is regarded as a legend. The Ratskins value freedom, harmony, and survival. They express themselves through their appearance, clothing, and tattoos. They have a natural and tribal style which reflects their primitive and nomadic lifestyle. They also enjoy singing, dancing, and storytelling, which they use to celebrate victories and commemorate the lost. House Cawdor is known as the House of Faith because of its devotion to the Redemption, a fanatical sect of the imperial cult that preaches the end of times and the purging of sinners. The Cawdor began as a small house with little to no affiliation with the religion it is now so wholly associated with. As a simple clan house, its members were in near constant conflict with House Orlock over the differences between scavenging and mining. This changed at the end of the 39th millennium, when the cult of redemption was born on Necromunda. It is said that Encordurius Brain was the founding father of the redemption, and that he converted House Cawdor to his cause after a miraculous vision of the God Emperor. Gathering together a large following of zealots and rebels who called themselves the Redeemers, they spread their violent message and fire throughout the Underhive. Acting as the unofficial judges of the other houses, who the Cawdor see as heretics and mutants, their ambition knows no bounds, seeking to eventually one day supplant Lord Helmore himself, who they believe is a tyrant and a puppet of the dark powers. Feared and hated by the other houses, who see them as fanatics and terrorists, the Cawdor only see the hate they espouse as religion reflected back upon themselves. Their zealous beliefs lead them to adopt a shoot first and ask questions later attitude in their dealings with their enemies. Gangers use primitive but effective weapons and equipment such as crossbows, flails, chains, and flamers. They also use various types of bombs, traps, and relics, which they craft from scavenged materials and adorn with religious ideology. They have been known to use animal companions such as rats, dogs, or birds. Cawdor has a theocratic culture where faith is everything and doubt is nothing. They have a rigid hierarchy where the most devout and fanatical individuals are the leaders, while the less faithful or useful are the slaves or sacrifices. They also have a council called the Holy Council, where issues of faith and plans for purges are made. The Fanatics of Cawdor worship the God Emperor in his incarnation, the Great Redeemer. They believe that he is the source of all life and salvation in the universe, and that he protects and guides them through flame. Their founder, Lord Cawdor, is regarded by many as a martyr. Naturally, the Cawdor value faith, purity and sacrifice. They express themselves through their ragged and grim style, which reflects their austere and penitent lifestyle. Praying, chanting and burning enemies at the stake, much like the witch trials of old, are particularly enjoyable pastimes. The code of honour gangers live by demands zeal, loyalty and skill. The Skavvies or Scavs are the outcasts and scavengers of Necromunda, not to be confused with the nomadic ash wasters. They are a mix of the descendants of underhive dwellers who were exposed to radiation, chemicals and disease, which caused them to suffer from mutations and deformities. Their ranks are also populated with down-and-out gangers from other houses, loners and general low-life scum. The Scavs live in the lowest and darkest levels of the underhive, where they survive by scavenging and stealing anything they can find. They have a nomadic and clannish nature, where they form gangs and tribes based on their mutations or afflictions. Their leaders pompously call themselves kings, although it is hard to see why. Whether it is an ironic joke or a grandiose claim of regency is unknown. These mutants are hostile to the oppressors of Necromunda, who they call the Smooth Skins. They see them as enemies and prey who exploit and persecute them, often raiding or ambushing the normies using little more than weight of numbers. The Scavs are despised by the other factions, who see them as savages and vermin. Of particular note, they are especially hated by the Cawdor and the Cult of Redemption, who persecute them for their heresy and mutancy. The Scavs use crude but effective weapons and equipment such as knives, clubs, axes and slings. They are the poorest of the poor and must make do with whatever they can scavenge from the corpses of their foes. Mutation is common amongst the Scavs, some afflictions of which lend themselves particularly well to survival in the underhive, such as scaly skin, extra eyes and additional limbs or organs, whilst other mutations serve only to hinder the unfortunate individual, such as burning skin, swollen eyes and emaciation. The Scavs worship various gods and spirits, depending on their tribe or gang. Some worship the horned rat, a chaos deity that represents mutation and plague. Others worship the Spider Queen, a dark goddess that represents stealth and poison, whilst others still worship the Great Spirit, a natural force that represents life and harmony, in the hope that it might deliver them from their suffering. Others yet worship His Holiness Nergling, desperate for him to grant them power over their crippling afflictions. Similar to the Ratskins, the Ash Waste Nomads are the wanderers and explorers of Necromunda, living outside of the hive cities in the corrupted deserts. But, unlike the Ratskins, they are not natives. Rather, they are the descendants of the dwellers who left or were exiled from the hives. They have a nomadic and adventurous culture where they travel in caravans of vehicles and beasts, searching for resources and relics. Each band led by an enigmatic leader called the Caravan Master. The Nomads are friendly to the traders and adventurers of Necromunda, who they call hive friends. They see them as allies and customers who offer them goods and services, as well as information and entertainment. They often trade or cooperate with them, using their knowledge, skills, and contacts. Nomads use various types of weapons and equipment, such as lasguns, autoguns, shotguns, and grenades, whilst they also use various types of vehicles and beasts, such as trucks, bikes, buggies, horses, camels, and dogs. The Nomads are known for their spiritual and ecological culture, where they respect and worship the ash wastes, which they call the Great Mother, or Giver of Life. The Spyrers are elite hunters and adventurers. They are nobles who live in the spires, the luxurious and decadent towers that rise above the planet. However, life in the upper levels can get boring. Once the decadency becomes the norm, many of the rich elite seek pleasure elsewhere. And what could be more exciting than visiting the cesspit below in the Underhive and living to tell the tale? Many nobles join the hunt, a ritual where would-be CEOs, leaders of industry, and politicians alike clad themselves in exquisite armor and arm themselves with exotic weapons to travel into the dark and violent depths of the hive cities. Owning untold wealth, the nobility and its attending bureaucrats have access to some of the most advanced and deadly weapons and suits available in the Imperium. Typically, they use 4 types of suit, each with different abilities and styles. The Yeld, which enhances speed and agility and uses blades and pistols. The Jakara, which enhances strength and durability and uses claws and shields. The Malkadon, which enhances stealth and senses and uses whips and nets. The Aurus, which enhances firepower and resilience and uses cannons and grenades. Once they don their suits, they are known as Spyrers, some of the most feared denizens of the Underhive. As apex predators, Spyrers compete with each other for kills and trophies. They are especially loathed by the Delaque, who resent them for their arrogance and intrusion into the Underhive. Many members of the aging nobility will occasionally return to their suits in pursuit of old glories, more powerful prey, or just perverse pleasure in seeing their enemies fall beneath their power. The hives of Necromunda are ripe pickings for would-be entrepreneurs and traders. Billions of inhabitants live in each hive, all desperate for the latest fads, foods, and weapons from off-planet. A savvy trader might see this as a golden opportunity to make a fortune, and they would be right. For nothing has more allure to the isolated spire brats than exotic wares from Outworld. Other, less well-connected traders make do with the hive residents and service their wants and needs, whether that be basic foodstuffs, general goods, or cheap wares from the moon's manufacturing plants. There is always someone willing to buy something. Down-and-out traders who have lost bets and owe money, those trying to escape the Emperor's justice, or just sly marbos who are out to skiv and scam their way to fortunes, invariably end up in the Underhive with the rest of the lowlifes. Well, on that cheery note, I'll draw this video to a close. I hope you enjoyed returning to the Underhive with me, and you come back soon. I'll catch you on the next one.